Hey everybody, welcome to our first episode of Gimmick or Gold. And today we've got Eric Lundberg, who is from Alice Labs. Found him on YouTube through some of these tutorials as I've been going through the workflow automation rabbit hole. But thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you very much.
Of
Great
course,
to be here.
yeah. Tell us a little bit about what you've gone through in terms of learnings and workflow automations. And tell us a little bit about your background.
Mhm. Well, we started around pretty much when GPT 3.5 got released, like the original Chat GPT. Uh, Both me and my co-founder were working with, I was working at a venture studio with the growth, like startups, apps, and stuff like this, doing go-to-market strategies. And my co-founder was working at another company with similar like growth strategies. And yeah, as soon as it dropped, we just like we could barely sleep for the first week. We just kept on talking to it and like couldn't believe that a computer could be like, oh shit, it's really getting me. It's understanding this. And from that point, we were instantly just trying to see where we could put the intelligence into workflows. First manually, and then, okay, well, if I can do this manually, where can I uh, where can I put it in programs to do the same things, but automatically? So we've been like since then fumbling our way forward and trial and error, trying out different things and where it can provide value. And about 4 months after we started Alice Labs, where we have a focus of finding these uh, administrative tasks and trying to automate them for fast-growing businesses that don't want to grow their headcount as fast as their revenue, basically. Yeah.
Got it. Very cool.
Yeah. Mm.
Um, can you share a little bit about like the types of companies that when you and your co-founder, whether working directly with startups and then venture
Mm.
studios, um, what was that experience like versus what you started with Alice Labs, right? And
Mm.
is the type of company that you're working with through Alice Labs and some of the automations different than the startup
Mm.
ecosystem, or or if they are similar, like how are they similar? I'm just curious
Yeah.
from like a go-to-market growth perspective, if
Mm.
if there's a specific type of use case in which you found these automations to work better with.
Yeah. Well, like bit of background there. I've always been super into the like validate the idea before you start
Sure.
building it, and like working with so many startups. Usually, it's just the same story. An entrepreneur has an idea, they haven't tried it, they raise some money to build the app that they have an assumption of working, and then. Uh, yeah, we've built it for like 6 to 8 months, and then it's like launch, and
Right.
nothing happens.
Yeah.
And then it takes ages to pivot because everything is in code. And my role between here was like I was more responsible for setting up the tracking. Like I had a product-led growth angle of it, so I was setting up the tracking to know if our assumptions was true to guide us towards the North Star metric, and then letting that guide the production team of how to pivot the product forward. But I just saw like this over and over again because there was no way to build things quicker then. And I was leaning in so much to like the no-code tools, like what if we can build this in Bravo or Adalo, or like just launch an app that can host
Yeah.
100 users,
Yeah.
and validate it. So I've kind of brought that mentality a lot to what we're doing with automation as well. Um, and we're trying to, I can like, we're trying to build things in like only pretty much no code tools because we're having the same ideas of this being a product that we need to adjust and pivot. And yeah, it just takes too much time to like build it in code.
Yeah.
And one of our first clients was a very like fast growing scale up business. They're called Supernormal Greens. Do you know about them? Have you heard about
Not
them?
not familiar.
So what they do is they do vertical farming and they sell pretty much salad. They grow and sell salad to these 200 stores every week. Every week they had a sales team. They were calling out to 200 different stores to have like place the orders of salads. And what we did with them, this was our very like first job in automation. That was a bit bigger. So our core product is we go in, we map out all the processes, and we want to be more of a growth partner to visualize their whole funnel, see where the bottleneck is, and then only automate the parts that make sense. So for them, it was the sales that was clogged at the moment. They had like 6 people that were constantly calling out and placing orders, and that was one of the first problems that we tackled. So what we did was we built an we replaced it with an agent that would send a text message to the stores because they didn't want to talk on the phone.
Yeah.
Like it was just messy. Like, oh no, now they called again. Like they might have missed it and stuff. So we replaced it for a text bot that would just send a text message. They could talk to it like a regular bot, like a regular person, ask things about the product and stuff like this. And it would calculate it had an algorithm that would calculate based off how they've ordered salad before. Here's what you probably should order now. So we give them suggestions and stuff. And then they could just place the order by talking to it, and it would just yeah, place the order in an SQL database and yeah, give Supernormal Greens the bit of they could do better. How do you call it? Trajectories of how much they should make 3 weeks in advance and stuff like this.
Got it.
Yeah.
Super interesting. And
Mm.
it's a great use case. I mean, obviously, I think there's a few things that was running through my head as you were talking out loud, which was, I think number one was like you and your co-founder had to understand what could actually be automated before you actually audit their process to then identify, right? And
Mm.
I'm curious too, as you guys were going through that process, like how much of it are you thinking like, okay, this is getting too bespoke or too like, unique to this use case versus like building something that's again, you can basically resell after you figured it out, right? Like, and was
Mm.
that in your mind as you guys were identifying where those blockers were? And like, obviously, so there were other instances in which automation would work, but it
Mm.
would be too unique of an instance. Just curious as to how you guys looked at it.
Yeah. Well, for that specific use case, we had in mind that, of course, like they're sitting in this situation, there are 200 other like similar businesses also sitting in that situation, and we also built it a bit differently. The first job, there was no way of building that agent in no-code tools
Mm.
at the moment. So this was before the Assistant API that OpenAI gave to make it a lot more easier to call functions and stuff. You had to just use the raw GPT-4 API. So we had the developers building it
Got it.
like from scratch, basically. And it also made it a lot more expensive to build than
Yeah.
it could have been today, you know?
Yeah.
Um, uh, right now, we have a lot more of a modular thinking of the automations that we build. Like, sure, the first client we have, it's the paid R&D to develop it. But then the second client is pretty much, there's always adjustments that needs to be made and stuff, but you have so much of it built already, so you can just
Yep.
change it very quickly. And that's pretty much only the time when AI automation as an agency actually becomes profitable and scalable.
Yes.
If you're
Yeah.
reinventing the wheel every time, like these custom big projects, um, you're stuck in this web agency mode
Yeah.
where
I
you're
got.
just, there's no scalability in it. And
Yeah.
we've been back and forth there a lot. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so I guess to answer that question, it's more of like it wasn't because this is again maybe the first client you're talking about a year and a half ago, maybe a little bit longer
Mm,
than that, right? So,
yeah.
I mean, which is amazing to me because it's changed that fast, right? So it's like, but now going into it, right, you are thinking in that mindset, which is like identifying which which workflows should actually you guys spend the time to automate and that you can then make it modular to like a next kind of customer.
Yeah.
It seems like, right? So, I mean, maybe speak to a couple other of the workflows that you guys have developed as of late. Again,
Mm,
like, I think other people who have gone through this, like, understand the trial and error process. You have to go through it to figure it out.
yeah.
I think what was making yours unique was like the focus on there's like a bunch of people that are trying to do this, and I think like it's very difficult for me as somebody who's been in growth for the past 10 years to like identify like where's the tangible ROI from this exercise. It's cool and it
Mm,
seems like super complicated, but I think like a lot of times it's too is like they've overcomplicated it for their own, to their own detriment. um
mm,
but yeah, the way that you were looking at these things was like, yeah, it seemed like it was more of like a backwards engineering. It's like you guys identified the particular use case and where this could be returning an investment for the client, and then ultimately, obviously, for yourselves because it's something that's more modular that you can resell to somebody that's similar. What's some of those workflows that you found to be most effective or most in demand as of late?
Yeah, I would say everything that large language models are mature enough to do.
Yeah,
And right now, they're really good at text. So everything in content is very mature to automate.
got
All text content is such a low-hanging fruit. Uh, and uh, so the thing about when we're also like we've been bootstrapping the entire way, and that's such a nice thing because if you don't provide value
yeah,
to your clients, they're not gonna pay for it.
yeah,
So it keeps you away from these fluffy like AI builds that are
yeah,
cool, and I love to sit and build them. And it also says a lot to where we're like I love to do it because okay, here's what's going to be on the shoreline in a year, and that's going to be the next frontier and stuff like this. But it's really important to distinguish which one can actually like bring the value consistently and reliably and which ones can't. And we've also made a like couple of things that cannot, that we just like discovered that it was not mature to do. So I would say right now the two biggest things is that are very growth focused. It's automated outreach, like doing the whole verification in like qualifying a lead, doing research on a lead, and tailoring a message to your value proposition to a lead, and automatically sending it out. And then we can go as far to also answering the incoming replies and booking meetings and all of that. But just that first part is really, we've discovered, like right now, I don't find any other marketing channel that beats the cost per getting in front of an important client, that automated outreach by email, text message, all of this has.
mm,
So that's one thing that is like, yeah, it's very, you can do it. It's kind of doing it the same way, but with a twist, doing it
got it.
hyper personalized, you know?
Yeah, and I'm sure like it's you. I mean, the modular part is like also probably the data that you're feeding it to personalize, right? It has to be contextual to not only the industry, but like the specific company, right? Because like it
Oh
could
yeah.
be a different size or stage within the industry, and they're gonna have to position themselves differently than if it's a smaller company versus a larger company. And I'm
Mhm.
assuming those are just inputs, right? That you guys are helping them set up, but like the core mechanics of it is then somewhat similar. Is that true?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Interesting.
So we would have mm, we have like then built, can call it AI agents that will research all public information on a business, and
Yeah.
then usually we have parts of the message that we replace, or sometimes we have the entire message. It depends how brave the client is, because sometimes it can also get very wrong,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
So I don't know, again, like this is maybe pertinent, but I was just reading earlier this morning on LinkedIn that there's like are you familiar with 11x?
No.
11x is like a AI SDR company, right? They are a US based company. I know we also didn't mention this, but you're also based in Sweden, right? You're in
Oh yeah,
Stockholm.
yeah. In
Yes.
Stockholm.
Um,
Mm.
but it's a AI SDR company that ended up raising a Series B, I think like $50 million last year. Uh, they were, supposedly doing like 10 million in ARR, growing really quickly. But now they're being exposed as being fraudulent in the sense that they had a super high churn rate, rumored to be as high as 90%,
Mm.
uh, and that the product didn't actually fully deliver in the way that it was being proposed. And
Mm.
I mean, it doesn't necessarily surprise me because I feel as somebody who's been around in growth for such a long time, like
Yeah.
if you are just providing a tool for somebody to create a lot of volume and a lot of noise and increasing velocity that doesn't actually, you know, convert into a customer, or it doesn't
Mm.
convert into an actual meeting. There's just a lot of like these little idiosyncratic
Mm.
steps, right? That's kind of involved. And I feel like it almost has to be like this kind of like modular specificity to it, where it's like it's not like you're custom building it per
Mm.
company, but it's like there has to be some modularity to it to actually make it work for a specific company within a specific industry. And it's very difficult to have this blanketed like large SaaS or agentic AI
Yeah.
application to do it. So it doesn't
Yeah.
surprise me in that sense, but I'm curious to see your
Mm.
take on it.
Mm.
Like the way that you guys have been approaching it, versus like just maybe again hearing the story for the first time, and knowing that AI SDRs exist out there, but have you experienced any of them? Have you seen any of them? And how would you say this is different from that?
Well, so you're talking about like programs that want to do it all, or like
Yeah, so there's
explain
like,
more. Like,
there's like programs that do it all. Like there's 11x, there is a company called AI SDR. There's a few of them, right? Like, which
yeah.
is, I think they cater more towards like other like software companies or tech companies, but
Hmm.
um, but it's essentially like doing like personalization at scale, right? But like
Hmm.
again, I don't know how much knowledge base they're gathering from their customers to be able to
Mm.
do it truly at scale and effectively.
Yeah.
So
So
I
so so it's a SaaS that makes personalizations. They
Yeah,
productize that, or
yes,
yeah.
correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I think we haven't tried any other. That's why, like, if there were any, we're using so much. Like, as soon as there is a good off-the-shelf product, we're gonna use it.
yeah,
We're not gonna build anything that we don't need.
yeah,
But most of the time, it's like all of the SaaSes that's tried to implement AI. It's just like it doesn't matter if it's Canva, if it's And now Apple, like no one can do can do it, so it becomes really useful and good for your specific use case. So we've had to build everything ourselves in N8N and make to make it exactly what we want it to, and also at a cost that that you can afford to scale
Sure.
for. Yeah. So that's what I
Yeah.
would say to that. Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm.
What are your thoughts on automations in like an enterprise, right? Like I guess, you've got companies like, I don't know if you've heard of like Klarna,
Mm.
which
They're
Klarna,
Swedish.
sorry, what? They're
They're
Swedish.
Swedish.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
Mm.
But big fintech company that CEO made the decision, late last year to stop using, I think it was like Workday and Salesforce, right? Which is like a big hit to just the SaaS space overall because
Mm.
they were betting on building out their own agentic AI and all this stuff. And then he recently said in a post that it wasn't like, it was probably like a mixed bag. First of all, that information wasn't supposed to go public. It was like, I think
Mm.
somebody sitting in on one of the board meetings ended up releasing that information that they were leaving those companies. But like, he also clarified that it's not as, it wasn't as easy as you think, right? It's like, if you're still feeding the machine shit, it's going to still produce shit. And so what it basically did was they realized that it wasn't the SaaS company's problems, and it wasn't, finding the workflows. It was actually like the data that they had. There was inherent gaps in the data that they had to be able to improve efficiencies or optimize in certain ways that they wanted to go faster. So
Mm.
ultimately, long story of saying, that them going to start taking it internally was the opportunity that presented where they could identify where the actual problems were.
Mm.
Curious as to, but that being said, it was like, it's not easy, like, because it wasn't, to them, it wasn't about building out those workflows or building out those agents. It was like figuring out that we actually have a lot of other like, um, maybe it's like data debt that they had to like recover to make it, or like tracking debt that
Mm.
they had to recover, which is your area of expertise. But I'm curious as to how
Mm.
much that plays into a role of also like, you talk about, whether it's automated sales outreach or it's, project management solutions, or it is like ordering workflows, right? It's like,
Mm.
how much is that contingent to be effective based on like the data sources that you guys are getting from customers or clients?
Um, Depends what. Um, yeah, I think like so far I don't think uh, maybe we're not building those kinds of solutions, but uh, I've heard a lot of people say like, well, if your organization's data is not ready, then you can't do anything because and I would say it's kind of, for our case, it's kind of the other way around. What like AI doesn't need structured data that well. It can make order out of chaos, and that's the good thing about it. But maybe we're not working with such big like systems
Sure.
yet. We're working with like the data we're processing is very specialized for one thing. It's like something that goes into a CRM here and lands in there.
Yep.
And I guess that step is going to be more important in the next frontier when autonomous agentic AI
Yeah. Yeah.
should
Which
will roam free. Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, I guess that's the curiosity that I have around a lot of these workflows, right? Like, I can see how companies like Cursor can grow to 100 million valuation with like 10, 20 people, right? Like,
Mm.
I'm sure a lot of these like super fast growing AI companies are actually using it they're using a lot of these workflow automations in the way that they run their processes, in the way that they grow, the way they create content, all these other things. And then
Yeah.
you have those companies that are at $100 million valuation, but don't have that as part of their infrastructure, and they have to have a 500-person team to substantiate $100 million AR. I'm wondering, like, if you've ever thought about, like, that gap, and what do you think about that gap, I guess,
Yeah.
and how do you think about the company that is $100 million, that's like still has a super large team? Like, is it possible for them to, what I mean, like, basically
Yeah.
break infrastructure and like go, how does a company like that's now 5, 7 years old, right? That wasn't built around this infrastructure from 2 years ago necessarily, versus another company that is same value, same, probably different growth trajectories now. But like, how would you, I guess, like, how would you assess that company that didn't build this as part of their initial infrastructure? And is there like a passing point where it's like kind of difficult to do it, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think it's and it's also we have worked with a few behemoths as well that
Yeah,
are these slow, mature companies.
yeah,
And yeah, I think our ICP right now is fast growing, founder-led scale-ups
sure.
that has the muscles to do these investments that almost they don't have a choice. They stand between, should I hire 10 new people or can we automate this? And they're so much more risk averse to it. They're just like, yeah, if we can save it, we should, because hiring 10 people also means so much more complexity. And
Sure.
um, and so I don't know what's going to happen to the huge companies trying to adapt. I think it's definitely possible with the right culture, but I think they're going to have to take radical changes
Yeah,
to
yeah,
adapt to it. And it's not going to be like an easy
yeah.
journey to do it. It's going to
And it's
be
scary.
painful. Yeah,
Yeah. And it's
yeah,
scary, right? Because then it's like you're going from what has historically worked to trying to chase something you don't know, right? And
yeah.
yeah, and it's also like a learning curve, like like you talked about. I mean, how fast things have grown and changed in the past just year and a half, 6 months even. Like, it's such a fast evolving space that you kind of do have to go down this rabbit hole, I think, to like understand, right, and learn, like, where can you implement these things, and like where is it changing towards, in order
Yeah.
to get ahead of it, right? uh
Mm. And you kind of need the pressure to do it because it's
yeah,
uncomfortable to try to innovate like these very custom processes sometimes. And you will only get that in sentiment when you are in that phase.
yeah,
We are growing our modules now, so our automated outreach. We also do a lot of automated SEO. We're
mm,
growing them as we think of them as separate businesses with
mm,
separate sales funnels and onboarding flows and deliverability processes. And we're treating them like, okay, this is only worth it if 2 people can handle 50 outreach clients. So
mm,
breaking down, we have to build it with automation in mind first. So our entire CRM, the onboarding process for a client, everything needs to uh, be able to be automated in a way. So it's like to go it that way, it's a lot more fun than to be already with like 40 people. You already have all the
yeah,
processes, and people are like, no, I've always done it like this. You
yeah,
really got to remove so much
yeah,
and know where to place AI and where to place human
yeah,
as
interesting.
well. Yeah,
Yeah,
don't automate the wrong things.
yeah, makes sense.
Mm,
um Curious, I don't want to take up too much time, but
mm,
in terms of, you saying the maturity of text is there, right? And we're getting new releases all the time, between, Anthropic and Chat and DeepSeek and all these other, a bunch of different players now.
mm,
How important is it to you to, like, or your team, I guess, to do the R&D to see if, others are coming up, or like where, like, because I know that when we look at it internally, we kind of like categorize we kind of do this like once a week right now, but like we play around across the plethora of those tools to understand like what is the best use case for that, right? So like chat is good for deep research or for like strategy, and then Claude is great for creative, like creative content kind of stuff, or even like creating scripts. And then like, Perplexity is good at also like more like static research. But we kind of like have to understand like how do these different tools play, even though they're trying to position themselves as like the catch-all. None of them seem to be that yet. And so curious as to like how much you guys like spend time to do that as well, as part of like, yeah, making sure that your workflows are using the right like foundational models for it to make, be relevant or be the best that it can be based on the current offering.
Yeah, well, we have all the software, we have all
Yeah,
the models,
yeah,
all of us, and we're using them all the time, all of them.
yeah.
So, and then we're doing a lot of knowledge sharing. So we use Loom for just like, oh, I just found out how to, like, we do a lot of like automated proposals, for example. We can do large SEO analytics in Claude artifacts with like that becomes this interactive React chart and send it to a client within 10 minutes. And like we come up with, so like, because we want to like a new, you've heard about vibe coding. Well, we want to say vibe entrepreneuring. That's what we like do with all these chats open all the time, and pretty much think AI first in everything. We do nothing without looping it through AI. So all our transcripts, all our meetings, we can like upload 10 meetings for a client. It knows all the context of that client, and now just start talking about how to solve this problem with them, you know? So a lot of it's, I think it's kind of underestimated how good it is to, and how much time also you need. It's a skill to
Yes.
know which one to use for which use case. It takes a lot of time and practice, and it does really right now, yeah, speed up a lot of things that I think that's going to be the biggest difference. I think the people who really know how to leverage it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm,
You mentioned you've been around growth for a while. I've been around growth for
mm,
like almost 10 years now. I've seen some interesting cycles and things like that. I have this personal belief, and this is maybe we'll end it, but like I'm
yeah.
curious as to your thoughts, with AI becoming more and more accessible. Right now, it feels like it's still, somewhat detectable. But I think about just like kind of like the, playbooks that I was suggesting, like from 10 years ago to up until maybe like 2 to 3 years ago is somewhat similar. It was like, there's a certain go-to-market, like, you got
Mm,
to define your ICP, you got to figure out the right channels, you need to test the different messaging, and you're distributing it primarily through like email, LinkedIn for the B2B space. And,
mm,
uh, and then you're aggregating this data, and you're finding just like creative ways to ultimately do those things and optimizing for like channels, messaging, and audience. And my curiosity is around like the more, and I don't think this is like even close to a tipping point yet, because I think like even though people are hyper aware of it, I don't think a lot of people are dabbling in it as deeply as you are, or even the way that I've been dabbling in it for the past 3 to 6 months. But like I
mm,
think that when my thought is like, what happens when uh 70-80% of go-to-market people are using it the same way that you're using it, right? Like
yeah.
it's a tipping point where all of a sudden it's like, okay, we've
Mm,
gotten as much as we can get out of AI now. Now everybody
mm,
knows what it looks like, and nobody wants to, like engage with that from just like a growth or go-to-market perspective. Thinking about that
mm,
specific use case. Um,
mm,
do you think about this when we talk about like the automated sales outreach, obviously, or the SEO stuff, right? I know for like,
mm,
like order automation or like logistics, certain things where like it is very process heavy and doesn't have any, creative necessarily or
mm,
human personalization or element that really needs to be involved. I get
Yeah.
that. Like, that totally makes sense. But in terms of like things like marketing or things like sales or biz dev and stuff, like, do you think that there will be an exhaustion from AI in the space and like a leaning more towards like a human, even like if it's like in person selling? I don't know. Like
Yeah.
if you have thoughts
Yeah,
about.
definitely. I think everything's moving in one way, like the if you call it like a tail of the comet, like the tail is moving so much slower than I would have ever anticipated. I was like, I'm so shocked at how many people still doesn't use AI in their day to day, So I think we still have like 1 or 2 years
Yeah.
of massive opportunities in some of these like ways of communicating. And at some point, I just think it's going to be like Facebook ads. Like everyone just is just oh, connect it like this and boop, and now it's up. And I definitely think, and we actually do some of it right now because we're like, okay, what's the conversion rate if we just record a 20-minute Loom video and send them?
Mm,
Instead of doing automated outreach, like the hype. I mean, that's also gonna be AI soon, the Loom video.
yeah. Yeah.
We have we've built a few automations for it, but it's not really there. But yeah, so I think a lot like of course it's going to be so much more important to have these to build relations and
Yeah.
to be there in the flesh and showing authenticity. Like soon, everything is going to be also these talking heads videos. It's going to
Yeah.
be very
Wow.
realistically looking, and people are going to
Yeah.
do it. And then it takes a little while. It's like now everyone knows when it's an AI generated photo, everyone sees it.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it's going to be kind of like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Very
But
cool.
so far it's good.
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
And then there will be new things. I'm really excited for the quick SaaS revolution is going to come. I've always like I thought that SEO would die when I
Yeah.
first tried ChatGPT because it just instantly changed my habit of going to chat instead of Google 9 out of 10 times. And then, of course, everyone kept on Googling for some reason. And SEO was like booming more than ever, and it's still working really well. I think everyone says that SaaS is dead, and I think it's going to be similar to that. SaaS will be dead at some point, but
Yeah.
before that, it's going to be the most golden era ever of
Mm,
these like Cursor, Windsurf, and Lovable tools that I think is going to be great. It's going to be fun. Yeah,
interesting. Very cool. On that note, thank you so much for taking the time, man. We'll provide your contact information for people who are curious to learn more about this stuff, or if there's want to book a consultative meeting with you guys to try to improve their processes or automate something. But this was very insightful. Thank you for indulging us. Of
great. Thank you for having me.
course.
All right. Bye.